The 10th of November, 1918. Kaiser Wilhelm II boards a train destined for a foreign land, fleeing both the enemy and the wrath of his own people. The account of the once mighty German Empire was, for all practical purposes, closed. But how did it come to this point? I'm the Enlightened Edelweiss, and this is the first of a series of videos centered around the decline and fall of the German Empire. Perhaps the most immediate cause for the empire's demise that springs to mind is the disastrous First World War, which left Germany's population decimated and starving. Or maybe it was the communists that, looking to their comrades in Russia, felt that the time was right to stage a revolution. These are certainly important factors in the development of the situation. However, it could be argued that the root of the problem lay not in the war or in the communists, but in Wilhelm himself, and that these external threats were only a manifestation of his own shortcomings. On the 15th of June 1888, the new Kaiser Wilhelm II ascended the throne. Immediately it became clear that he wished to exert direct influence on the government. Even before he became emperor, there were signs of the turmoil to come. He had become involved in some serious anti-Semitic activity, for which he was reprimanded by Bismarck, who was the chancellor at the time. Through the years, Bismarck had carved out a peaceful and stable position for Germany and Europe. He despised war and preferred to settle things with cunning diplomacy. This wasn't for any moral reasoning, of course, but simply due to the fact that he had absolute control in matters of statesmanship, but zero control in war, where nothing was certain, and all was left to generals whom he distrusted. Wilhelm's attitudes towards war clashed fiercely with that of Bismarck's. In autumn of 1887, Wilhelm joined the pro-war party and expressed his wish to wage a war of aggression against France and Russia. This behavior particularly startled Bismarck, who remarked, "That young man wants war with Russia and would like to draw his sword straight away if he could. I'm not going along with that." The grounds for future conflict had already been set. When Wilhelm did ascend the throne, he initially maintained a facade of friendship with the chancellor. However, in private it was clear that he wanted to get rid of the old man. Under Kaiser Wilhelm I, Bismarck had always managed to get his way. He assumed that it would be the same with his grandson. He was gravely mistaken, and this led to some serious clashes. Perhaps most significant of all was their disagreement on social policy. Wilhelm thought that the working class could be appeased through an extension of the welfare policy that would involve the end of child labor and working Sundays. Bismarck, on the other hand, thought this idea completely unnecessary, and instead advocated for the use of repression tactics. It is for this reason that he proposed to take permanent measures against socialists in the government. Wilhelm certainly agreed to this idea, however wanted much less harsh terms, which Bismarck could not agree to. However, in the end, this didn't amount to anything, as the Reichstag, which was the German parliament, rejected the bill in January of 1890, a powerful signal of the decline of Bismarck's influence. The next month, Wilhelm issued a proclamation promising change and further welfare. The chancellor's signature was absent. This led to a massive decline in Bismarck's popularity, and he did horribly in the next election. His desperation growing, he attempted to rally support behind a proposed increase in the army and a highly repressive anti-socialist law. He planned to call up an assembly of German princes to limit the powers of the Reichstag in the event that his proposals failed. However, he wasn't supported by the Kaiser, and so his ambitions were thwarted. In March of that year, they butt heads once again over the issue of whether or not ministers had the right to advise the monarch without first obtaining permission from the chancellor. While accounts tend to differ slightly, it seems that during this meeting, Bismarck appeared to have lost control over himself and threw his dispatch case to the ground in anger, causing a mess of papers. He then reached down and attempted to hide the papers that he had in fact brought for this very purpose. Naturally, the Kaiser demanded to see the papers, and was therefore confronted with a letter from Tsar Alexander III, the Emperor of Russia, talking about him behind his back, essentially calling him an ill-mannered boy with bad faith. Wilhelm was thoroughly humiliated, and Bismarck had gotten his petty revenge. After this disastrous episode, Wilhelm decided that he had had enough. He now forced Bismarck to resign, though it was presented to the public as if Bismarck had resigned due to issues with his health. With Bismarck gone, now there was no one left to oppose the aggressive ambitions of the mighty Kaiser. The first nail in the coffin of the great German Empire had been struck.